So we'll park up Arne Slot for a second, because I do think we've focused a lot on him over the last few weeks and months, and understandably so. But let's just park up Arne for a second and go above his head here. Talk about Richard Hughes, Michael Edwards, and FSGs. Do we think that those guys are doing their jobs well enough? Because, like I said, it's easy to point fingers at the manager because results are, down to the footballing side of things. But some of the decisions that are being discussed aren't his pay grade. They're above his pay grade. So how much fault should lay at the feet of Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards for where we are this season?
I think I'd blame Hughes more than Edwards. Like, I don't think Edwards is as involved day to day as you might think. Like, especially when he's like the CEO of football for FSG rather than Liverpool specifically.
Which
Like,
is a handy gig, by the way, because I'm over here in Brazil looking at a club. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm definitely not on the Copacabana beach, and I'm over here. I'm working me nuts off trying to find yet another club because I'm the CEO of football.
Michael, it's football clubs, not nightclubs. You're meant to be at. Oh, sorry, you weren't specific enough. Um,
Oh, you didn't want to break into futsal. Oh well, there's no point me being down here. Then you didn't want the beach soccer team. No point me here in the Copacabana. That I'm off, lads.
Michael Samba Edwards, but yeah, Richard Hughes is just like it's hard to. I don't know how far to criticise due to like the signings he brought in were like fantastic, and I've no doubt every single one of them will be a massive hit long term. But the general squad planning and the fact that we're not moving in this market deserves a lot of criticism, and the fact that he seems to be too like pally almost with Arne Slot. Like, is it almost job for the boys at this point where like he doesn't want to sack the fella he's brought in, and they're like kind of in this together at this point. Like, I know he wants to back him as much as possible and hope he turns it around. But at some point, you have to just look at it and go, right, this isn't working. Like Arne, I think even as a whole, you have to say it was a successful thing because he came in and won the Premier League. But at this point now, it is just gotten to the point where he has to make that decision and say, look, you're gone. We're going to start a new project with someone else. And I think a lot of the criticism should fall on Hughes for that. The fact that he hasn't been decisive enough on that and hasn't acted in the window as well. But again, lots of good work. But again, like the FSG thing, he done 90% of the work and then stopped rather than going full tilt.
Yeah, we're certainly hollow this season, and that's been shown up as the season's gone on. As you said, I can't look back at those signings and really say I was anything other than happy with most of them. But again, there is that caveat of, but we still needed X or Y. We still needed a DM that was widely known. We still needed a centre back that was widely known, and there was still a conversation to be had about that other energetic wide player did not brought in. So going into this season, we were optimistic, of course we were, and let's not try to rewrite the history books, but there was always an acceptance that we may come up short in certain areas if there are injuries. And that's where I really put the fault at the likes of Richard Hughes, because he has to plan out a squad that can get through the rigors in the campaign. And we're supposed to believe that we were going to challenge across all competitions. And to challenge across all competitions, you need something with the depth of an Arsenal. And even they are stretched at this point to try and stay. And we've been in positions where we've gone deep in the four competitions in recent years. So we know what it takes and we know the toll that it takes. But the biggest critiques I'd have right now of those on the footballing side and the recruitment side is we seem to be doing some decent work for the future with good, young, talented players, 16, 17 years of age. But we're not seeing them really progressing this season into the first team, anyone that has come through. And no young player really, outside of maybe Stevenson in pre-season, has progressed through the ranks. So maybe, look, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt that sometimes the academy type signings, they take 2, 3, 4 years before they pay off and you see them into the first team. But you can't just then ignore the depth of the first team. And that's where I think Richard Hughes maybe does need to have a little look in the mirror and think, did we leave everybody a little bit short in certain areas?
Yeah, like the academy is important, of course, and like long term planning, that will be a good thing. Like, even if one of the three or four lads we brought in makes it to the first team, that has to be chalked up as a success. But like you said, like individual signings, brilliant, but as a whole, squad planning, not enough players, didn't really add to the depth we had last year, and we kind of just replaced one in, one out almost. And then you're putting a lot of trust in young players that Arna doesn't really seem to want to do. Like, even going back to that Ben Spolchak article, like saying they put on like an academy day for him and he didn't even bother showing up. Like, how do you expect to bring through young lads when you're like that? You're not giving Rio enough minutes. You're barely giving Trainioni a look in. Like you're not keeping even away from the young lads. Just like not keeping Chiesa fit enough to come in when someone is injured. Like it's just more squad planning things mixed with Arna's kind of poor man management as well. But definitely a lot of fault on Richard Hughes for not really fleshing out the squad more.
Feels like to me like, and this is, I love a good analogy. It feels to me like Richard Hughes has gone on to create his FPL team at the start of the season. He's gone in and got the best centre back, the best centre midfielder, the best centre forward, and then before he looks at it, he's got 12 million quid left and three positions left to fill, and he's like, "Uh oh, what am I going to do here?" That's kind of what this feels like to me, Connor. Is that yeah, we've ticked that off. We've got Ekatike, we've got Isak, we've got Wirtz, Frimpong, Kirkes. We've no money left for a defender and a midfielder.
But like even, there was money. Like we had Mark Ahey wrapped up. That's the most confusing part. Like there clearly was money left there, unless it was the whole Harvey Elliott theory that money is no longer there. But like we've no PSR concerns. We had targets who were available, didn't move. Like I can't wrap my head around the logic, but I'm sure there's some sort of master plan there. And ultimately, I would trust his judgment more than I would distrust him. But definitely some big question marks over at the same time.
Would like to know what everybody else thinks on this one. So if you're watching this on YouTube as a clip, please do let us know your thoughts on how much scrutiny the likes of Hughes and Edwards should come over and where FSG's role is in all of this. And one thing I want to finish up on this executives conversation, Connor, again, I feel like I'm coming back to our old friend David Lynch here. He and I used to have conversations about empowerment. And David used to say, and again, to be fair, this summer, I think he would probably prove right in what he said, that Hughes and Edwards are empowered to make those decisions and that FSG basically empower them for the day-to-day running of the club. So at this point, then, is it fair to say if they are empowered, as they seemingly have been, that more of the fault lies with those two than those above FSG, or do you think the chain of command comes into play? Because I understood David's point at the time. I just never really seen proof that we were that they were empowered, but they did spend this summer, so they were clearly empowered to go out there and bring in and out, but ultimately spend a lot of money. So that has rung true. So that's why I'm saying, is this why we should be pointing the finger at Hughes and Edwards here?
I think so. I find it hard to believe John W. Henry sitting down and pouring through transfer targets and so. Like, I'm sure day to day he's not actually that involved. Like, he probably writes the checks and kind of like if they're going to spend 125 million on Isak, I'm sure they have to kind of run that by him. But like in terms of if we went out and signed Mark Ahey, I'm sure he's not even involved in that. Like, so I would say 95% of the blame is on Hughes and Edwards. Of that 95%, probably 80% on Hughes, let's say, because he's probably the one doing the day to day stuff. But I just think he's just too hidden away as well. Like he should be doing press conferences. He should be answering the questions on contracts and stuff. Like, to be fair to Arna, like, there's no point in him being asked them questions because one, he's not going to give an answer anyway, and two, it's not really relevant to him. So Richard Hughes needs to step out, take a bit of the heat as well, and just try to explain some of the logic to us. Try to explain some of the reasoning, and just kind of take some accountability because no one really seems to be doing that.
As you said to me before on one of our videos, you said you enjoyed seeing Richard Hughes up there when Arna was unveiled, and as did I. And I think a lot of us thought maybe this was going to be a refreshing change and that this could be the path forward. And I'm sure there was even some chatter in the media that maybe this was going to be the path forward, that this was more that kind of European, German, Dutch model where the sporting director does come out and face these questions.
He definitely should, especially in Germany. I think you see was a Bayern Munich CEO recently come out and saying like, yeah, we've offered Upamecano this, and if he doesn't take it, then he can piss off. Basically, like, just imagine hearing that from Richard Hughes. Like, that'd be nice to hear some sort of. Well, there is an offer on the table for Kanate, but he's stalling. Like, at least then we'd know, right? Well, the club has made an offer. We're not just trying to piece together 4 or 5 different sources saying he wants this, the club saying this, what, and the other. Like, it's just, I feel like it would clear up so many things if even once a month Richard Hughes came out and done an interview or a press conference with the manager. But it's definitely, I would like to see it just purely from an interesting point of view and getting some sort of clarity on these situations. So yeah, I'd definitely be in favour of that whole European model of doing that.
I think the Liverpool way is often trotted out as an excuse to just not give information or not be forthcoming or not be transparent with fans. I think it's almost like, well, this is the Liverpool way, but at the same time, we're supposed to believe in a modern structure where, You know, we have a sporting director and a football CEO. So if we're building a modern structure, and the Liverpool way was built around the old boot room mentality and keeping things in house. So either way, that doesn't work anymore in the modern football, because we don't have a manager that's all encompassing. We have a model which is based off a European system.